One everyone! Welcome back to the channel! I'm 11. I'm a peppy girl who escaped from the lab just to see you. And today, we're doing part 2 of Oversimplified's American Civil War video. I know you guys have been asking for this one, so I'm excited! And before we start, I want to address something. In my last video, I miscalculated really badly. I'm really bad at math. So, I'm sorry. Math isn't my strong suit. A lot of you guys pointed it out, and yeah, my bad. I hope you guys still enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed today's video too. Once again, if you wanna suggest something, please put it in the Discord, which is linked down in the description. Thank you so much, and enjoy. One! I also forgot to say, because this is a part 2, if you haven't watched part 1 yet, please check out the description. I'll put the link to part 1 there, but it's not gonna make much sense if you haven't seen that yet.
This video was made possible by Honey. Stick around to learn how you can save money when you shop online.
Save money with Honey.
As
Why
the
is
Union
it so
struggle to
ominous?
take control of the East continued, elsewhere, the war raged on. The Confederates attempted an invasion of Kentucky.
Whoa, okay, I maybe should have gotten a refresher of the other video. We're going right into it. Okay, where are we? We're in Cincinnati, okay.
Hoping the state as a whole would join them, but they were pushed back. The Indian Territory saw Native American tribes ally with one side or the other in the hopes of securing rights after the war. Along the Mississippi, General Ulysses S. Grant remained one of the few
Oh man, I'm sorry, Native people. The right situation isn't going that great for you.
Union generals scoring major victories. With his best pal, General Sherman, by his side, Grant led his armies down the Mississippi to the Confederate stronghold of Vicksburg. Both sides knew that if Vicksburg fell, the Confederacy would be split in
They're going down Mississippi. Are they going in boats?
two, and the Confederates prepared for an intense defense of the city. But back in the East, Lincoln still wanted somebody to march south and take Richmond. Having given General McClellan the boot, he needed a new man.
He's the one who's a
in charge.
coward,
All
right?
Mr. President. Option 1 is General Hooker. Bit of a nutcase, but a good
Bad
general.
name.
Option 2. His qualifications are his name is Burnside, and he has freaking dope-ass sideburns. Say no more. So General Burnside was put
I mean, look, I'm sorry, but if I have the choice between Mr. Hooker and Mr. Burnside...
in charge of the Army of the Potomac and sent south. Lincoln hoped he finally had a general who could succeed.
Those are some
Burnside
sick
met
sideburns.
General Lee at the city of Fredericksburg, where he intended to rapidly cross the river and take the city. But the Union War Department was too slow in delivering the pontoon bridges, and the two sides were forced to camp across from each other, close enough to
That's
spit.
so awkward.
Hey Yankee, ready to get your butt kicked? Yeah, right, rebel. God is on our side. No way, God's on our side. Oh, you think so? Well, why don't we ask him? Hey God, whose side are you on? Ow. Dude, uncool. With over 100,000 men, the Union Army finally launched their massive attack on the 11th of December. But by now, the Confederates had amassed their forces. During the battle, wave after
11th of December. I don't know how cold it gets in that part of the world. I guess maybe not that cold, so it might be okay.
wave of brave Union men marched headlong into a brutal Confederate onslaught. Even the Confederates couldn't believe what they were seeing, and in one moment of camaraderie, a Confederate sergeant, unable to take it, reportedly came out into the field to tend to the Union wounded. Seeing this, the Union troops held their fire. Still, Burnside and his forces were soundly defeated at Fredericksburg and forced to retreat. Lincoln's popularity and Northern morale continued to plummet, especially as the winter heading into 1863 was bad.
Oh, that's what I was wondering. Like, winter's always really rough for war, so I'm wondering what the climate is
were
over
rife
there.
with disease. The food was less than appealing. On both sides, men began to leave. Hey, where do you think you're going? I'm deserting. What? Don't you love your country? Yes, I do. And I'm trying to get back to it as quick as I can. Lincoln, ever
Fair
the
point.
kind and caring man he was, spent much of his time pardoning deserters' death sentences. Oh my, here's a 17-year-old boy sentenced to be hanged. Well, I'd better suspend his sentence, or he'll be suspended tomorrow.
That's so bad! No.
What? To try to keep the numbers up, both sides had introduced conscription. There was controversy in the North, however, since rich men could simply pay to have someone else fight on their behalf. Riots
Wait,
broke
on their behalf? I thought it was gonna be paid to get out of it. Fighting on your behalf is crazy. And wait, who could you get to fight on your behalf? Because I assume conscription is gonna be all able-bodied men between a certain age range. So, wouldn't there be no people left to pay? I'm not sure how that would work. Who do you pay? Because they have to go anyway, no?
broke out in New York City with enraged mobs furious at the idea of going to fight for slaves, an idea that many of them simply did not support. However, after so much pressure, the Union had finally begun allowing black men to enlist, and these men, knowing what they were fighting for, signed up. By the end of the war, nearly 200,000 troops, 10% of the Union Army, would be black. The valor and bravery they showed throughout, silencing critics. Okay, well that last guy was useless. Let's try this Hooker fellow. General Joseph Hooker was put in charge of the Army of the Potomac, and once again, Lincoln ordered him to move south and take Richmond. Hooker met Lee at the Battle of Chancellorsville, where Hooker had over twice the men Lee did. Lee was forced to defy all military convention and split his smaller force into two. Lee had absolutely no chance of winning, and Lee won. It was...
Honestly, why don't we just give up about... Let's just give up here. This is clearly not doable. Like, too many people have tried. This Lee guy's insane.
his masterpiece. Lee did suffer one significant loss during the battle, though.
Himself?
As his right-hand man, Stonewall Jackson, was riding back to the Confederate lines at night, the nervous Confederate troops, unable to recognize him, opened fire. You boys done goofed up.
Are you for real? His own people shot him? Y'all done goofed.
Jackson died 8 days later. As for Lincoln, he couldn't believe it. It was yet another loss, and Northern support continued to waver. While the Union kept on struggling in the East, out west, unconditional surrender Grant was making moves as always. In an attempt to take Vicksburg on the Mississippi,
Terrible
he made a
opening
series
move
of
in
risky
chess, by
and
the way.
bold movements. He sent a cavalry raid and feigned Sherman north to confuse the enemy. Then, aided by a fleet of ironclads on the river, he raced his army south
A lot of you guys were explaining about the ironclads in the comments last time. Thank you.
to cross the Mississippi. Aware that the terrain to the north was restrictive, instead, he strategically moved northeast, hitting Vicksburg's supply line and defending his rear from Confederate armies in Jackson. Once he reached Vicksburg, the Confederate defense became hardened, and Grant was forced to settle in for a month-long siege, during which time he got rather bored. Despite not taking the city,
The Jim
Lincoln
Beam's
loved
coming
it
out.
and encouraged Grant to hold firm. It would only be a matter of time before the Mississippi was in Union hands. Around this time, the people in the west of Virginia, who had remained loyal to the Union throughout, finally broke away to form their own state. They could have named it anything in the world, but the creative minds at
High School Musical, the musical, the series, the stage. Why not America 2? Electric Boogaloo.
the time came up with the ingenious West Virginia. Back in
Wow.
Washington, Lincoln
Nailing
once
it.
again wanted a new general to take command. Oh my goodness, why do all these 19th century generals look so bust? Look, we got Sleepy Eyes Joe here. That's Princess Leia with a mustache. E.T. phoned the doctor. Fine, why don't we give Snapping Turtle McGee here a shot? So General Snapping Turtle McGee was put in charge of the Army of the Potomac, and it was a crucial time for the Union, because once again, the Confederates decided to go
There's no way this could go wrong.
on the attack. So far, they had done exceedingly well militarily, but as the war kept going, the Confederate economy was crumbling. Riots broke out in the streets of Richmond as the price of bread skyrocketed. Supplies were dwindling. Jefferson Davis wanted to send men west to rescue Vicksburg, but General Lee knew the longer the war lasted, the worse their chances got. And he still hoped if he could just threaten D.C., the already demoralized North would surrender. So in
I mean, that does kind of seem like their best shot because they've not done a very good job up here.
June 1863, with the momentum behind him, General Lee once again entered the North, fighting his way through Maryland and into Pennsylvania.
Oh wow, they got
General
way
Lee
up.
set out to meet him for what would be the most significant battle of the entire war. If
Big
the
detour.
Confederates won, D.C. could fall. If the Union won, it would be a turning point as the Confederates would run out of steam, and the small town that was to get caught up in the crossfire of the largest battle in American history was Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. On June 1st, units from each army
I've heard about Gettysburg. I think it's the only context I've ever heard about this town before.
encountered one another and skirmished through the town itself. The townspeople were forced to take refuge, except for one man who reportedly ran outside for a strange reason. Joseph, what are you doing? I'm not gonna let them take my beans. How many
Beans,
times do I
beans, the
have to
magical
tell you
beans.
they're not here for your beans? By the second day, over 100,000 men stretched for miles across the battlefield. Lee took the initiative, deciding to hit the enemy's flanks, and he came very close to breaking through the Union's disorganized left. But Union Colonel Joshua Chamberlain ordered a desperate bayonet charge, smashing into the Confederates and forcing them back. The Union forces held across the line. On the final day, Lee believed the Union Army had fortified its flanks, so he decided to finish them off with one massive central assault. The Confederates rushed at the Union lines during General Pickett's charge, and this time, it was the Union's turn to unleash hell. Meade had correctly guessed Lee's strategy, and the Confederates were decimated, forced to turn and flee. A devastated General Lee called out to his fleeing and wounded men, telling them it was his fault. And after holding for a counterattack that never came, he ordered a retreat back into Virginia. The North had just managed to score a massive victory, and one they desperately needed.
Kinda, if I remember correctly, their first victory in this area too. So close to DC, it's kinda crazy.
And if that wasn't enough, in the West, after a month-long siege, Vicksburg finally fell. The
Oh yeah,
North
they
now
ran out of
held the
resources,
Mississippi.
that's right.
And better yet, it was the 4th of July. With control of the Mississippi, Union forces moved into Arkansas and Tennessee. Tennessee in particular saw heavy fighting, with Union General Rosecrans masterfully pushing Braxton Bragg's Army of the Tennessee out of Tennessee. He suffered a major setback, however, at the bloody Battle of Chickamauga, and ended up under a Confederate siege at Chattanooga. At one point during the siege...
Sorry, I'm trying to remember where exactly we are geographically. What state is this? My American geography isn't that great, I'm sorry.
A temporary truce was declared so that wounded men could be recovered. And often in the Civil War, during these small truces, men from both sides would meet in the middle to trade things like tobacco, coffee, and maybe even honey.
Oh my god.
Do you like honey? Me too. Bees are great. And you know what rhymes with honey? Money. Did you know honey
He stole my joke!
can help you save money? Let me explain. Honey is a free browser extension that automatically finds you the best coupon codes when you buy stuff online, for free. For example, here I am purchasing 100 pepperoni pizzas because what the heck, I do what I want. With just a...
Didn't like a big video come out? Kind of... Canceling is the wrong word because Honey isn't a person, but kinda like unveiling Honey's methods. Like, are Honey still around after that video? That was pretty huge.
click of a button, I've saved $210. Nice. Honey works with over 30,000 websites, including eBay, Target, and Expedia. And it's already found Oversimplified subscribers over $46,000 in savings. It takes just 2 clicks to install. And better yet, it's absolutely, positively, 100% free. Get Honey now and start saving money by clicking on the link in the description below. joinhoney.com/oversimplified. That's joinhoney.com/oversimplified. And as always, you'll be supporting my channel. So thank you.
I
Now, where
assume
was
this video is a bit
Oh, yeah.
older.
Vicksburg, 4th of July, and
Yes.
the Siege of Chattanooga. Thankfully, General Grant, now in charge of all Western Union armies, showed up and karate-kicked Bragg right back into Georgia. Like this. With Sherman and Hooker, Grant took on Confederate positions in the mountains around the city, including the
Oh, so wait, Hooker is still there. I thought maybe he was fired after his failure near DC, but I guess they just moved him over.
famous battle above the clouds and Mission Ridge. Grant continued to be Lincoln's #1 guy. With these victories, Lincoln hoped the war was finally turning. Back in Gettysburg, the entire town had been turned into a hospital to care for the scores of wounded men. Throughout the war, on both sides, women such as Clara Barton rose to the occasion, doing crucial work on the home front and volunteering as nurses. For those who had given their lives, a new national cemetery was to be established at Gettysburg, and Abraham Lincoln traveled out to attend the opening ceremony. At the event, the main speaker spoke for 2 hours.
2 hours?
Then, Abraham Lincoln was called forward to give some brief, appropriate remarks. In just 2 minutes, he masterfully and poignantly iterated America's national purpose and the need to continue the fight.
It seems like he was a pretty charismatic guy. I wish we could have heard him. Well, I wish I could have heard him speak.
The Gettysburg Address would become one of the most famous speeches in American history. While they were now making progress, the North still couldn't find a decisive victory in the East. And that was bad news for Lincoln, because his presidency was now in its 4th year. In 1864, there was an election coming. The Confederates knew this too, and
Did they have term limits back then? Could you only run twice as well?
with little hope left of being able to
man.
threaten the North militarily, they believed their last shot at victory may be in
Is
the
this
election.
BTS?
Since Lincoln, emancipation, and the war itself weren't exactly popular. People in the North were sick of war and wanted to put it behind them. Robert E. Lee hoped that if he could just hold out and continue to inflict more defeats, the people of the North would vote Lincoln out and replace him with a Southern sympathizer who may be willing to negotiate. Lincoln knew now he desperately needed a victory.
I wonder who the potential competitors were at the time. Who could have been?
Now, I know what you're thinking, but oversimplified. If Lincoln loves General Grant so much, then
How'd
why
he get
doesn't
his
he put him
footage
in
of
charge
me?
of the campaign in the East? Well, guess what, loyal subscriber? You've hit the nail on the head. You're bold, Grant. I'll grant you that. I'm promoting you to General-in-Chief, and I ain't taking you for granted. Now,
Oh
I
my
want you to
God.
go defeat Lee. Grant me my wish. Please stop. So Grant was put in charge, and he came up with a new plan. He wanted to press the Confederates on all fronts, with General Banks to capture Mobile, Alabama, General Sherman moving south to Atlanta, and Grant joining the Army of the Potomac as they advanced
Might be a good idea if they're running out of resources. But there's still like half the video to go, so I assume it's not gonna be that easy.
through Virginia. In May 1864, that plan went into action. Sherman steadily advanced on Atlanta, facing off against a smaller Confederate army under General Joseph E. Johnston. In addition, a cruel yet
Wow,
highly
look at
skilled
that hair.
cavalry general and winner of the funniest Confederate statue award, Nathan Bedford.
Nothing could have emotionally prepared me. I'm sorry. It's really quite lovely. Wow, what a beautiful.
Force was also nearby, doing his best to threaten Sherman's advance. But in a series of battles, Sherman dominated and pushed Johnson back to the city.
I'm so
But
laughing.
he was held just outside of Atlanta itself and was forced to lay siege. Meanwhile, the main show was happening to the east in Virginia. The Union's top general was finally about to face off against the Confederacies. Lincoln hoped Grant would bring something new to the Eastern Theater, and bring something new he did. As
Wow.
Grant began moving south, Lee still regularly
That is a very unusual chest opening move.
outmaneuvered him and inflicted heavy casualties, hoping to demoralize the North as much as he could. But here's what set Grant apart from others. He knew Lee was running out of men and that the
And
North by comparison
resources.
had plenty. Grant would throw his forces at Lee, and even when Lee repelled them, Grant, rather than pulling back, would give the order to keep moving forward and flank Lee. Again and again. In under 6 weeks, 80,000 men would be killed, wounded,
Jeez, that is such a crazy amount of people.
or missing. In D.C., Grant was criticized for being a butcher. At the Battle of the Wilderness, the Union casualties were so heavy that Grant reportedly began to weep. But still, Grant could replace his losses. Lee couldn't, and he was being pushed all the way back to Richmond. Lee knew once he got there, he'd be under siege. Then, it would only be a matter of time. Close to Richmond, Grant again suffered horrific casualties in a miscalculated assault at Cold Harbor. Then, trying to be a trickster, instead of moving on Richmond directly, Grant moved towards Petersburg to flank the Confederate capital and cut its supply line. But, just like Sherman, Grant was halted outside of the city, and he too was forced to settle in for a siege.
That might be tricky if they haven't taken Richmond. They kinda... I worry they might get cut off.
2 identical sieges would not be good enough for Lincoln's re-election. The people of the North saw the casualties Grant had been taking, and they weren't happy. To make matters worse, Lee had sent Jubal Early north to threaten D.C., with the hope of forcing Grant to withdraw troops from Richmond. Early was repelled on the outskirts of the city, with President Lincoln even attending as an observer, but the North had been given a fright. So with the war currently in a stalemate, who was to be Lincoln's opponent in the critical 1864
That's what I was wondering.
Who would the Democrats choose? Guess what, baby? I'm back. That's right. General George B. McClellan would run for president against Abraham Lincoln. My fellow countrymen, if you elect me, I, the great General George McClellan, will fearlessly and valiantly win the war. Unlike this douchebag.
Based on what?
Many Democrats, however, including McClellan's running mate, wanted to end the war. So it's possible McClellan may have ended up fearlessly and valiantly making peace with the Confederates, which is exactly what they were hoping for. With the war in a stalemate and Lincoln still not popular, it looked like McClellan would win, and the Confederacy may have a chance at surviving after all. Lincoln himself said that without some kind of major victory, it seemed exceedingly probable that this administration will not be re-elected.
Yes. Okay. Prediction. I think there will be some kind of massive victory. Come on, Grant. It's time to pull
Well,
through.
fret
Grant
not,
him his wishes.
because if it's a major victory you want, it's a major victory you'll get.
Oh,
Atlanta had been
Sherman.
under siege by General Sherman for just over a month. After a number of battles around the city, Sherman sent a force south to sever the city's supply line, and Confederate
Same plan
General
as
Hood
Grant.
was forced to abandon it. Atlanta, one of the Confederacy's most important cities, had fallen into Union hands. For many, it was clear that the Confederacy's defeat was now inevitable, and the war would soon be over. When the final results came in, Lincoln had won with an electoral college
Wow,
landslide, with the
99%,
troops in
that's
particular
crazy.
voting overwhelmingly for Lincoln, which must have been touching for
The troops voting for him. Wow, that is. I mean, he must have been a really inspiring man if the people dying on the front lines are voting
their
for him.
commander-in-chief. Hey man,
I wonder how voting works when you're at war. Like, if I'm currently at war, how do I vote? How does that work?
looks like you lost. No hard feelings? I didn't lose. I merely failed to win. In January, Lincoln involved himself heavily in ensuring the 13th Amendment made it through Congress. In a narrow and historic vote, the amendment passed. Slavery would now be constitutionally banished throughout the nation. Black men and women, watching the vote from the galleries, knew the work had only just begun. A couple months later, at his second inauguration, with victory right around the corner, he didn't celebrate, he didn't gloat. Instead, he emphasized the need for reunification and binding up wounds. To him, Americans, North or South, were to again be compatriots. However,
That must be
listening to Lincoln speak that day
difficult.
was a man who had
After so much animosity, it is kind of crazy that the US has managed to reunite as one nation. I don't think that's a given, considering how many other countries are still splitting too.
no interest in reunification. John Wilkes Booth, an actor living in D.C., was also a deep Southern sympathizer. And as the war turned against the Confederacy, depressed and full of hate, he was already plotting his revenge on the man he held responsible. With further Confederate losses, it was pretty clear at this point who would win. But still, Jefferson Davis showed no sign of giving in. The North were frustrated to see the conflict being dragged out. Why waste more lives? In Atlanta, General Sherman believed he had the key to forcing the Confederacy's hand. He had an unusually modern concept that an army could only survive with the support of the people. Strike at the people,
How modern of a
and the
concept
army
indeed.
collapses. Sherman decided to do something unprecedented. He would remove his 62,000 men from their supply line and march through the heartland of the Confederacy, where they would live off the land. There, they would wreak havoc. As they marched, they tore up railroads, burned farms, and destroyed communication lines. They also liberated thousands of slaves. The damage done was estimated at $1.4 billion.
Wow!
The tactics were cruel.
1.4, that's crazy. I mean, they're basically almost going salt and earth on,
But to
on those
Sherman,
guys.
it was better than losing yet more men in battle. In December, he reached Savannah, Georgia, but he wasn't
He reached
done
the
yet.
coast.
Next, he turned north to inflict his punishment on the first state to secede, South Carolina. As he moved, he came ever closer to General Lee's army, still holding out at Petersburg. The siege of Petersburg had lasted for 292
Wow.
days.
Close to a
60,000 of
year.
Lee's men had deserted. Numerous Union attempts to break through had failed, but when the breakthrough finally came, it came quick. On April 2nd, a Union assault finally pushed the Confederates from their defenses. Hey man, there's no need to evacuate, right? You'll rescue us like last time, right? Sorry, can't hear you.
I don't know about that.
Lee narrowly escaped the city, hoping he'd be able to meet up with General Johnson and continue the fight. Grant chased him down. Richmond was evacuated, and Jefferson Davis went on the run. As they left, the Confederates set fire to military buildings, but the flames burned out of control, and as the Union troops arrived,
Did they burn down their own city? That's crazy.
they became firefighters. A couple of days later, Abraham Lincoln visited the war-torn city. Grant caught up to
I
Lee
sure
at
hope he got
Appomattox
evacuated
Courthouse,
in the
where
end.
he trapped his forces. It was here, on April 9th, 1865, that Lee saw no point in continuing. Sir? Listen, bub. I drank a bit too much last night, and now I'm hanging like a fruit bat on a hot day. So whatever you have to say, I don't want to hear it. General Lee says he wants to surrender. Hot diggity dog! Grant and Lee met in the home of a nearby farm family, owned by a man who had tried his best to escape the Civil War years earlier, Wilmer McLean. All
Wait,
right,
is that why they kept bringing this guy up?
can we all just hurry up and get this over with? Martha, not now! I'm cleaning!
I can't believe this guy's house is still standing after all that.
Do you want us to get rats? Grant and Lee, after years of war, now spoke respectfully to one another. When Lee left, his face filled with emotion, Grant's men began to cheer, but Grant ordered them to stop. He knew that now was the time for reconciliation. Just over 2 weeks later, General Johnson would surrender to Sherman, ending the war for 89,000 Confederate soldiers in the largest surrender of the war. Not every Confederate state had surrendered, but the war was as good as over.
Sorry, this looks like a little foot.
Across the North, church bells rang out and celebrations erupted. In Washington, Lincoln
People
gave a
must be
speech
tired
from
of the
White House
war.
to a jubilant crowd, in which, among various things, he expressed his support for black voting rights. Lincoln had seen the nation through its deepest crisis. The presidency had visibly aged him. He
Yeah,
had
how
lost
old is he at this point? Because he looks really old, but I don't think he was even that old when he
over
died.
20 pounds. He said sometimes, "I think I am the tiredest man on earth."
I mean,
I'm
he
not
must
sure
be.
tiredest is a word, but geez, the man's exhausted. Cut him some slack. On a carriage ride with Mary, Lincoln clearly was looking forward to being a president in a time of peace. He was apparently very cheerful, surprising his wife, and he told her that between the war and the loss of their son, they'd both been very miserable. Now, it was time to be happy. On the evening of April 14th,
Oh.
Lincoln attended a play with his wife and some friends at Ford's Theater. It was a comedy, and the president appeared to be enjoying it very much. In a nearby bar, John Wilkes Booth swallowed 2 glasses of brandy. He slipped quietly into the president's booth and awaited for the audience's laughter to rise.
Oh man, that's
The
so
president was
sad.
shot in the back of the head. Booth fled the city. Soldiers carried Lincoln to a boarding house across the street. There, doctors declared there was nothing they could do. Surrounded by his heartbroken wife, son, and members of cabinet, at 7:22 the next morning,
Why is this guy aura farming on Lincoln's deathbed? That's crazy.
President Lincoln passed away. Never before had a president been murdered.
This is so sad. I mean, okay, someone getting shot is always sad, and obviously I always knew it was sad. But the way it's framed, like it's finally a time of peace and finally some respite after so much war, it's really tragic.
A shocked nation mourned as a 12-day funeral procession carried Lincoln back to his home in Springfield, Illinois. On April 26th, Union cavalry found John Wilkes Booth in a barn in Virginia, where he was shot. Not long after, Confederate President Jefferson Davis was also tracked down and arrested. Imprisoned for 2
I didn't
years,
know that.
he was eventually released. The North didn't want to put him on trial for fear the jury may rule that Southern secession had in fact been legal. To ensure reconciliation, other Confederate generals and politicians were allowed to re-enter life in the now restored Union. Scattered fighting continued into May, when the last Confederate forces in Texas disintegrated.
It is kind of crazy to think that the fighting was still continuing at this point. Like, it's so pointless. Why? Like, life's lost for nothing.
Southern states
It's
came
senseless.
under Northern military occupation to prevent any further rebellion, and a very difficult era of Reconstruction began. Over 3 million Americans had fought, brother
Wow.
against brother. The Civil War remains the bloodiest conflict in U.S. history. But the Union had
50,000
been preserved.
civilians.
You could say the real winners were those who were to never again be slaves. Further amendments passed by Congress gave black individuals the right to citizenship and to vote. Significant progress had been made. However, entering into the 20th century, it was clear the fight for equality would continue.
It's not over yet anyway.
In modern America, the man who fought to preserve the nation and never gave up in the darkest of times stands as a symbol of honesty, empathy, humility, perseverance, and courage.
He really sounds
A
like a
continuous
stand-up
reminder
gentleman.
of what has forged America and what it should ever strive to be.
I think when we over here in Europe hear about America and the American dream, that's kind of what I always envisioned, you know? Those kind of values and those kinds of great people. I wonder if we'll ever get to see this kind of figure again. Considering the hardship that it entails. This was really interesting. I feel like I didn't know anything at all really going into this, so I've been educated. Thank you so much, Oversimplified, for this really interesting video. Thank you for educating people out there like me who are from Europe and don't really know anything about the subject. Thank you! And thank you to you for watching. I am also very grateful for all the comments explaining some of the finer details. Thank you so much. If you have another video to suggest, please put it on the Discord. Take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and run.